Hey everyone! This is a quick reminder to subscribe and hit that like button. It lets me know that you are enjoying my content. Also, feel free to drop your suggestions for future stories in the comments below. Thank you for listening, and let's dive right in. I was ass deep in debt, and it wasn't the kind you could laugh off. It was the wake up at 3 a.m. suffocating kind, the kind that made you wonder if selling a kidney was really that bad of an idea. I tried to keep up with my student loans, but at some point, the interest laughed in my face and started multiplying like roaches. The way things were going, I was either going to drop out or start paying off my debt from the afterlife. And then there was Mom. Cancer. Stage fucking whatever. It didn't even matter what number they slapped on it. All I knew was that she was getting worse, and the medications were bleeding our wallets bone dry. Dad? Gone for years. No postcards, no Merry Christmas texts, not even a drunk voicemail at 2 a.m. My brother? Even worse. A professional mooch with a gift for ruining people's good intentions. I used to help him. I really did. But at some point, you get tired of setting yourself on fire just to keep someone else warm. I needed money. And my shit job at KFC wasn't cutting it. It was past midnight, and I was halfway through my shift at KFC, scraping dried gravy off the floor, when my coworker Lisa leaned against the counter and sighed. "Girl, I am so over this place," she groaned. "Only reason I'm still here is 'cause it's my second job. The gas station pays me way more." That caught my attention. "Wait, what gas station?" I asked, flicking a piece of crusted mashed potatoes off my sleeve. "Circle K. The night shifts pay bank. Like way more than this grease trap." I didn't even think about it. I just grabbed her arm. "Lisa, be my hero. Tell your manager I need in." Lisa laughed. "Damn desperate much?" "Lisa, I am a single tragic event away from selling feet pics." "Yes, I'm desperate." She snorted. All right, I'll put in a word for you. But just a heads up, the night shifts there are weird." "Weird?" Lisa opened her mouth to answer, then got called to the fryer. "You'll see," she muttered before walking off. That probably should have been a red flag, but I was too broke to care. The next morning, I woke up to my phone buzzing against my face. Unknown number. I answered groggily. "Hello?" A warm professional voice responded. "Hi, is this Ariana?" Who's asking?" "This is Janet, the manager at Circle K. Lisa spoke very highly of you. Do you have time to come in today? I'd love to meet you in person." My brain was still booting up, but one thing was clear. I had a chance at real money. "I'll be there," I said, rubbing sleep from my eyes. The Circle K was only 10 minutes away, just off the highway. A flickering neon sign buzzed overhead, the kind of place you stopped at during long road trips when you had no other options. Inside, it smelled like stale coffee and melted candy bars. A few shelves stood half-stocked, and there was an out-of-order sign on the slushie machine. Behind the counter stood a woman in her mid-40s, dressed in the standard red and black uniform. She had a warm smile, kind eyes, and the kind of calm demeanor that made you feel like she could handle anything, even dumbass customers trying to pay for gas with a Chuck E. Cheese token. "You must be Ariana." She extended a hand. "I'm Janet. It's lovely to meet you." "Nice to meet you too." I shook her hand, doing my best to seem like a competent, functioning adult. "Lisa told me you're hardworking, reliable, and you've got plenty of customer service experience," Janet said, gesturing for me to follow her behind the counter. "That's exactly what we need for the night shift." I nodded. "Yeah, I've been working since I was 16. I can handle a register, food prep, drunk assholes, you name it." Janet chuckled. "Good. You'll fit right in." I could already tell I liked her. She wasn't one of those managers on a power trip. She just seemed tired, like she had seen some shit but still held it together. We made small talk about my schedule, school, and experience, and within 10 minutes, she smiled and said, "You know what? The job is yours." It happened so fast that I almost thought I was dreaming. "Seriously?" I blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that," Janet said. "Lisa was right about you, and besides, we need someone reliable." That last part lingered a little too long. Before I could think too much about it, she clapped her hands. All right, here's the deal. Your shift starts at 10 p.m., but come in at 8 p.m. for training. I'll show you how everything works, and you'll shadow Jack, the guy who works nights. I nodded. Sounds great. We shook hands again, and just like that, I had a new job. As I stepped out into the parking lot, a weird sense of relief settled over me. More money, more stability, maybe even a chance to fix my life. I didn't know it yet, but this job was about to become the worst mistake of my life. And by the time I realized it, it was too late. I walked into Circle K at 8 p.m. sharp, my new uniform slightly too big, the polyester fabric making my skin itch. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed softly, bathing the store in that too white glow that made everything look a little too artificial. Janet was already behind the counter, punching numbers into the register. She looked up when I entered and smiled, friendly, calm, collected. Nothing about her screamed weird gas station horror story. Right on time, she said. Let's get started. The first half hour was basic retail shit. She showed me how to work the register, where we kept the cigarette cartons, and how to fix the receipt printer when it inevitably decided to be a little bitch. I learned how to prep the hot food, which was mostly microwave burritos and those weird wrinkly gas station hot dogs that had been spinning for God knows how long. Then we went outside, and she showed me how the gas pumps worked. I didn't have to do much besides reset them when people paid inside. If a pump glitched out, there was a reset switch in the back office. Pretty straightforward. Normal. Too normal. When we got back inside, Janet checked her watch. Jack should be here soon. You'll be shadowing him tonight. Cool, I said, grabbing a sip from my lukewarm iced coffee. What's he like? Janet hesitated for just a second. Jack's quiet, she finally said. But he knows the job well. You'll be fine. That pause? Didn't love it. The front doors slid open before I could push for more details. Jack was around my age, tall but all sharp angles, like he hadn't eaten a proper meal in years. His Circle K uniform was wrinkled, and his dark eyes looked permanently exhausted. He barely glanced at me before muttering a flat, "Hi," and that was it. No handshake. No "Hey, welcome to hell." Just a barely functioning human in a gas station uniform. The temperature in the store seemed to drop just being near him. Jack, Janet said, this is Ariana. She's starting tonight. Show her the ropes, yeah? Okay, Jack mumbled. He still hadn't looked directly at me. I plastered on a polite smile. Nice to meet you, dude. Jack just nodded, walking behind the counter like a malnourished ghost. Janet exhaled. All right, I'll leave you two to it. Good luck, Ariana. And then, just like that, she was gone. The first part of the shift was uneventful. Jack showed me how to scan lotto tickets, where we kept extra stock, and how to pretend to be busy when customers started telling their life stories. By 11 p.m., I was running the register, and Jack was silently restocking chips. Then, the bell above the door chimed. A man walked in. I barely noticed him at first, just another late-night trucker, probably stopping in for caffeine and a nicotine fix. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing faded jeans and an old baseball cap pulled low over his face. He walked straight to the counter and placed a few crumpled bills down. I opened my mouth to ask what he wanted, but before I could get a word out, Jack shoved me aside. Hard. I stumbled back, slamming into the snack rack. Jack didn't even glance at me. He silently reached under the counter, grabbed a pack of yellow Camel cigarettes and placed them in front of the man. The trucker took them. Jack took the cash. No words, no receipt. The man turned and walked out without a single glance in my direction. The bell above the door chimed again. He was gone. That's when I smelled it. It hit me like a brick wall. The whole gas station reeked, but not like trash or spilled beer. It was worse. Rot. Decay. That thick putrid stench that clings to the walls of a morgue, the one that seeps into your hair, your clothes, your bones. I'd smelled plenty of dead bodies before. Too many, thanks to my medical training. This was the same. I turned to Jack, my stomach twisting. Do you not smell that? Jack exhaled slowly, rubbing a hand over his face. Shit, he muttered. I was hoping this wouldn't happen on your first night. His voice was shaky, not bored, not high, scared. He rummaged through the papers under the register and yanked out a crumpled sheet. Here, he said, shoving it at me. Take this, memorize it, then put it back. I took the paper, unfolding it carefully. At the top, written in smudged red ink, were the words, "Rules for the night shift." The list was completely random, no logical order. Just short, blunt instructions. 1. The yellow camel man. Do not speak to him. Give him the cigarettes and take his money in silence. 2. The woman with no reflection. If she comes in, do not look at the store windows or security cameras while she's inside. 3. The man in the ripped suit. He will ask for gas. Give him a receipt for a full tank, even if he never pumped anything. 4. The woman who leaves a note. If she places a folded note on the counter, take it, but never read it. I blinked, looking back up at Jack. You're joking, right? Jack just shook his head. You have to follow the rules, he said. If you don't. He trailed off, his fingers twitching against the counter. Let's just say you don't want to find out. The gas station smelled normal again within minutes. I spent the rest of the shift side-eyeing Jack, trying to figure out if this was some long-ass prank or if he was genuinely insane. Every time I asked, he dodged the question. At 6 a.m., Janet returned for the morning shift. Jack wordlessly grabbed his backpack and walked out the door. I lingered behind the counter, staring at the crumpled list of rules under the register. It had to be a joke, right? The list of rules never left my mind. I didn't want to believe in ghost stories or cursed gas stations, but after the yellow camel man, I knew better. That rotting stench, the way Jack panicked, the way the store felt like it had something lurking in the walls, none of it was normal. And over the next few nights, I got my confirmation. These things, these customers, weren't human, and I had to follow the rules if I wanted to survive. It was night 3 when I met her. I was half asleep, slumped over the counter, watching the minutes crawl by. I had already restocked the shelves, mopped the floors, and counted the cigarettes twice. The gas station was dead silent, the only sound coming from the old radio Janet kept behind the counter, playing some static-filled classic rock station. And then, the door chimed. I straightened up immediately, eyes flicking toward the entrance. A woman walked in. Tall, thin, dark hair tucked into a long coat. Something about her posture felt off, like she wasn't used to walking inside places like this. She moved straight toward the refrigerators, gliding more than walking, and I reached for the register, forcing myself to act normal. Then I saw the time. 3:07 a.m. The number burned in my brain, sending a shiver down my spine. My stomach dropped. The list. I glanced at the store windows, at the security monitor above the register. Don't. I snapped my gaze down, staring hard at the counter. Do not look at the security cameras. Do not look at the windows. My hands tightened into fists. I could feel it, the pull, that itching, creeping sensation in the back of my skull, telling me to just take a quick glance. I didn't. I kept my eyes glued to the register. A minute passed, maybe 2. The sound of footsteps, the refrigerator door opening, the quiet clink of a water bottle being picked up. Then the woman walked up to the counter. She placed a single water bottle in front of me. "Do you have anything fresher?" she asked. Her voice was soft, too soft, like she wasn't used to using it. I swallowed hard. My throat felt tight. "Say it." "This is the freshest we have," I replied. Silence. A moment later, I heard the sound of coins clinking onto the counter. I kept my gaze down, took the money, and handed her the bottle. Then, just like that, she was gone. As soon as the door chimed behind her, I sucked in a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. I waited. 3 seconds. 5. 10. Then I risked a glance at the cameras. The store looked normal, but the glass doors leading outside were still pushed open, like she had walked out, but never fully left. Night 5. This time Jack saw him first. He was standing outside, facing the gas pumps, motionless. Jack nudged me. "Go behind the counter." I didn't question it. I went. A moment later, the door chimed. The man stepped inside. He looked wrong, like he had been in a car accident an hour ago and hadn't realized it yet. His suit was ripped, fabric torn like claws had raked through it. His face was pale, bloodless, and his hands trembled violently at his sides. But the worst part? His shadow. It stretched too far, further than it should, longer than it should. He approached the counter shaking. His lips parted, and when he spoke, his voice came out ragged, hoarse. "I need gas," he said. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a receipt for a full tank, slid it toward him, and looked away. His shaking hands reached for it. The second his fingers touched the paper, his breathing hitched, a sharp, jagged inhale, and then he was gone. The door never chimed. He just wasn't there anymore. His shadow still lingered for a second longer before melting away. I turned to Jack, my hands cold and clammy. "What the fuck was that?" I whispered. Jack just stared at the register, expression blank. That was the easy one. Night 7, I was alone behind the counter, clicking through my phone, when the door chimed again. A woman approached, her face obscured by a long hoodie. She carried nothing, no water bottle, no snacks. She didn't look at me, she just placed something on the counter, a folded piece of paper. I knew what it was. I knew. "Take it." I slowly reached forward, pinched the note between my fingers, and slipped it into my pocket. The woman stepped back. She hesitated, just for a second, then turned and walked out. That was it. But as soon as she was gone, I felt it. The paper. Heavy. Wrong. Like it wanted me to read it. I didn't. Instead, I grabbed a plastic bag from under the counter, tied the note inside it, and shoved it into the back of the drawer. It was still there the next morning, untouched. But I swear, I could hear it shifting inside the plastic. Like it was waiting. By week 2, I had seen all the special customers, and I had followed all the rules. Nothing had gone wrong. Nothing bad had happened. Then one night, Jack called in sick. Janet sounded annoyed over the phone, told me I'd be working alone. I didn't think much of it at first. I had done everything right so far. But somewhere deep down, I had this itching feeling that tonight would be different. Tonight, something was going to go very, very wrong. And I had no idea how bad it would get. The gas station was packed. Friday nights always brought in the worst kind of customers. Drunk college kids looking for snacks, truckers wanting coffee thick enough to melt a spoon, and highway weirdos who didn't blink enough. I was on my own tonight. Janet had called an hour ago, letting me know Jack had called in sick. "Think you can handle it?" she had asked. I had laughed. "Yeah, I got this." Like an idiot. Now at 12:46 a.m. I was slammed. The register beeped non-stop. The soda machine was jammed, and a woman was screaming at me because the bathrooms were out of order. I was barely holding it together. And then, the door chimed, and the smell hit me like a fist to the face. It was instant. A gut-wrenching stench of rot, decay, something old and wet and dead. The same smell from before. I froze. Behind me someone gagged. "What the fuck is that smell?" A guy near the energy drinks muttered. "Oh my god, what the hell?" The girl at the slushy machine recoiled, covering her nose. A sharp, thick wave of nausea rolled over me. And then I saw him. He moved slowly, stepping through the doorway like a glitching VHS tape. Like he was catching up to time itself. Same old trucker jacket, same greasy baseball cap pulled low. But I knew better now. That wasn't a man. That was something else, wearing human skin. The register screen burned white in my vision as I turned back, trying to focus on anything but him. Don't speak. Don't look at his eyes. Just follow the rules. He walked up to the counter, crumpled bills, the same as last time. I grabbed a pack of yellow Camel cigarettes, just like before. I placed them on the counter. My hands shook. I reached for the money, my pulse slamming against my ribs. Just take the cash. Just take the fucking cash. But then, the woman at pump 3 yelled, "Jesus Christ, what is that stench?" More people groaned, coughed, cursed. I snapped. I was stressed, exhausted, overworked, and in that second, I forgot. $9.50, I said without thinking, and then everything stopped. Slowly, so fucking slowly. His head tilted upward, like a marionette being dragged by invisible strings. And then I saw them. His eyes, they were foggy, pale, empty, like dead fish eyes rotting under the sun, like he had drowned decades ago and forgotten to leave. And then he smiled, no teeth, just a gaping, blackened mouth, lips curling back into an endless, wet void. My stomach flipped. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. Then the lights flickered. The gas station glitched. 1 second, it was normal. People coughing, swearing at the smell. Then, it flashed, and suddenly the store was empty. The lights above hummed, but half of them were burned out. The floor tiles were cracked, caving inward, like something had been dragged across them over and over and over. The refrigerators in the back, doors wide open, their contents spoiled, rotting. And the people? Gone. Not a single customer remained, not a single sound except for the soft, raspy breathing coming from the other side of the counter. I snapped my gaze forward. The yellow camel man was still there. But now, he wasn't waiting, he was lunging. I threw myself back, barely dodging the swing of his arm. His fingers were blackened, twisted, ending in sharp, peeling nails. His breath hit my face, hot and rancid, like something long dead and still rotting. I stumbled, crashed into the snack rack, knocking over an entire shelf of Doritos. My brain wasn't working. I had no plan, no weapon, no fucking clue what was happening. All I knew was this. I had broken the rule. I ran. Didn't think. Didn't plan. Just moved, lunging toward the back room as fast as my legs could carry me. The yellow camel man was behind me, too close, too fast, his boots slamming against the tile in an inhuman, jerky sprint. I grabbed a metal display rack as I ran, ripping it down, sending an avalanche of candy bars and gum packs crashing onto the floor. It didn't stop him. I burst through the swinging door into the storage room, slamming it shut behind me. I grabbed the mop bucket, shoved it against the door, and backed up, breathing hard. The room was dim, the single flickering light bulb overhead casting everything in sickly yellow. I turned, heart pounding, scanning for anything I could use as a weapon. I saw a rusted metal flashlight on the shelf. That would do. I grabbed it, my hands slick with sweat. Then the door slammed open. The mop bucket flew across the room, slamming into a stack of paper towels. And he was there. The yellow camel man stepped forward, shoulders hunched, that same toothless grin stretched across his rotting face. But he wasn't alone. The security camera in the corner of the room glitched. A faint, grainy figure flickered in and out of view. Then it lunged. The woman with no reflection. She crawled out of the security feed, her body twisting unnaturally, her limbs too long, too thin. She moved jerkily, like a broken marionette, her hollow eyes locked onto mine. I barely had time to react. She reached for me. I swung the flashlight. It connected with her face. Her head snapped back, a sickening crack echoing through the room. But she didn't fall. She just twisted her neck back into place like it was nothing. My stomach turned. The air grew thick, heavy, like I was standing at the bottom of the ocean, drowning in shadows. The yellow camel man took another step forward. I grabbed a metal chair, swung it in front of me, forcing distance between us. I could feel it. Something else. A presence. I turned and saw him. The man in the ripped suit was standing in the doorway, his body trembling violently, his shadow stretching across the entire floor. He lifted his hand. It was wrong. His arm was too long, his fingers twisting unnaturally as he reached for me. My breath hitched. I knew what would happen if he touched me. I ducked. His fingers grazed the top of my hair, a chill seeping into my scalp like a creeping frost. I rolled to the side, crashing into the metal shelves. Everything rattled, cans of energy drinks and instant ramen toppling over. My ribs ached, my lungs burned, and then I felt it. A cold hand around my wrist. I froze. I turned my head, pulse slamming in my ears. The woman who leaves a note was kneeling beside me. Her hood was lower now, revealing a pale, featureless face. In her hands, she held a single folded piece of paper. She lifted it slowly, pushing it toward me. The note. I knew what would happen if I read it. I yanked my wrist free, stumbling backward, sending another shelf toppling over. Canned beans and expired protein bars rained down. The yellow camel man lunged. I swung the flashlight. It connected with his skull. Once, twice, a wet cracking sound. His grin never wavered. I bolted. I threw myself into the main store area. It was still the twisted version. The slushy machine was shattered, its contents oozing across the floor like melted flesh. The walls were peeling, revealing dark, pulsing rot underneath. The clock above the register flickered. 5:59 a.m. One more hour. I just had to survive. I kept moving, dodging them, grabbing whatever I could use as a weapon. Bottles, cans, broken glass. The yellow camel man stalked me through the aisles, his movements unnatural, twitchy. The woman with no reflections skittered across the walls, her limbs jerking, her body flickering like a broken TV signal. The man in the ripped suit stood near the entrance, waiting, watching. The woman who leaves a note reappeared again and again, her paper always outstretched. I was trapped. Nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. I felt something behind me. I turned. The yellow camel man was inches away, his jaw unhinged, and he screamed. A horrible, hollow sound, like wind howling through an empty grave. The gas station shuddered, the lights flickered, and then silence. I gasped, my body lurching forward. I stumbled out of the back room and into the normal gas station. I stood there, staring at the gas station, my breath still ragged, my hands still shaking. The floor was clean. No broken shelves, no spilled slushy mix oozing like melted flesh, no rotting corpses lunging at me from the security feed. The customers were normal. A woman was counting change. A man was grabbing a bag of chips. Someone by the refrigerators was popping open a soda. They were talking, laughing, like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just spent the last hour fighting for my life in some twisted, rotting version of this place. I glanced at the register. It was empty. No one had been running it. Because I wasn't here. I wasn't in this version of the gas station. My stomach twisted. I took a shaky step forward, gripping the counter just to feel something real. I had survived. But now, I knew. And I didn't think this place was gonna let me go. The door chimed. I flinched. Jack stepped inside, moving casually, like this was just another shift, just another night. His eyes landed on me, and for the first time since I met him, I saw something in his face. Not boredom, not exhaustion, something else. Something close to relief. He walked up to the counter, leaned in slightly, and whispered, "You broke them, and you got out." I couldn't breathe. I grabbed his arm, yanking him aside. "What the fuck was that?" I hissed. My voice was shaking. I was shaking. "What happened to me? What the fuck is this place?" Jack sighed, shrugged, and in the same deadpan voice as always, he said, "I told you on day one. You don't want to find out." Then he stepped behind the counter. Like nothing had happened. Like I hadn't just fought off the dead. Like I wasn't standing here, barely holding myself together. I turned, looking back at the customers. The clock on the wall read 7:03 a.m. Outside, the sky was turning pale blue, the night retreating, giving way to the real world. I had survived. I had broken the rules. I had gotten out. But the truth was, I didn't feel like I was out at all. This place wasn't normal. It was never normal. And now I knew too much. I wondered if the gas station would let me leave, or if one day I'd become one of them.